Dr. Bondar, it is a pleasure and an honor to speak to you this morning. And I thank you for taking time to participate in my video podcast series. As you know, February,
Thank you for inviting me.
As you know, February 11th has been recognized as the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. As President of the General Assembly, I wanted to use this day, and in fact, the entire month of February, to shine a spotlight on this issue, to highlight what we can do better to empower more women and girls in science, and also to remove the barriers to their participation, and more importantly, to inspire them to want to engage. A few months ago, Dr. Bondar, I had the chance to speak to a group of women scientists at COP26 in Glasgow. I heard from them the challenges they faced in their careers and how they overcame them, how they are still overcoming them as well, because the struggle, it continues. I took many messages away from that meeting, but one that stood out for me most was the feeling of having to overcompensate, of having to always prove yourself again and again. I can imagine this is something that many young people, but particularly young girls, have to deal with. I hope that our video today inspires young girls and boys, encourages us as a society to move, to help remove the obstacles and challenges that so many are facing. Now, if you would allow, Dr. Bondar, I have a few questions for you. Let me ask you first. Do you remember what inspired you of science, the love for science?
I can remember very well when I was a young girl. I grew up on the shores of Lake Superior, which is the largest freshwater lake in the world. And I remember very clearly seeing the stars above and these big horizon, and seeing the stars reflected on the water. And my parents and my sister would go out with me to see the stars. And as only a 4-year-old could do, just to think about what might be up there. But I do recall very early on that my parents had a very great influence on me and my view of the natural world. We'd go out in a tent, we'd explore. It was the time when the curiosity that my sister and I had growing up was really encouraged, so that we engaged in the natural world. We asked questions, and our curiosity was met with a great support.
Thank you, Dr. Bondar. Almost every child, including me, and many adults, they dream of going into space. But you actually did. So if you were able to describe the feeling of traveling into space for the first time to millions of girls around the world, what would you say? And also, how did it feel like?
Yes, well, for the first 2 days, it didn't feel all that great, because getting used to an environment where everything floats around and it's not just vertical and horizontal. So the walls and floors become at angles, and things come up from your feet and behind your head, and you get tossed around just with the air currents. It's quite an amazing thing. And your balance system of your head has to really get used to it. And sometimes you feel a little sick to your stomach. But looking out the window, when I finally was able to do it, because I had so much work to do, I think it was on about day 2, the commander called me up, and I looked out the rear aft window and saw the Earth as a globe for the first time. We didn't get far enough away to see the entire Earth, but seeing the edge of the Earth against the black universe, it was the reality of that moment that Earth really is a planet. We learn about it in school, but it's actually that emotional being there in the moments. You can't get away from it, that the glowing Earth because of the sunlight coming back to our eyes. Just a very beautiful sight. But it's that edge of the Earth, it's that deep blackness of space with stars that don't twinkle, became very almost cold and foreboding. And it was the Earth that was actually providing my sense of belonging.
Remarkable, Dr. Bondar, remarkable. And as a woman in science, what were the obstacles in your career path?
I faced many obstacles, some of which I didn't even know that my parents were able to handle for me. A guidance counselor, for example, wanted me to study languages in the last year of secondary school and called my mother in, and she basically said if she wants to study science and math, she'll have to learn how to study, but we're not going to tell her what she needs to study. So I guess it turned out okay. I faced other obstacles as a woman, certainly in my careers, and I continue to face them. There are certain things about facing them, I think, that provides us all courage and confidence as we go on, but sometimes you just wish they didn't have to occur at all.
Rightly so. Women and girls face so many obstacles, and you have transcended them and come out. What would you say to women and girls who want to be scientists?
One of the things that I have learned throughout my engagement with other generations of young people, both men and women and boys and girls, regardless of the gender, is that the curiosity we have when we are growing up, certainly very early on, needs to be fueled with a good support system. So my view is science is no different than other things in life, and science is all around us, and is trying to understand how things work, and to be curious, and to keep ask that question why, and then soon you'll be able to ask how, so that science actually can diminish the fear factor of a lot of things in life. Because when we're afraid of something, we don't know about something, we kind of get a bit paralyzed in doing other things. So science does provide us some information and knowledge and helps us grow.
Thank you. You have become a role model, you have become a pioneer in this great field of science. What would you say to the policymakers and others who can help clear the way for young girls and boys in this field?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I'm not a policy maker, but I certainly would like to be able to influence some of those policies. A lot of it deals with education for sure. And I think that on the level that I'm at now, I look back and I look ahead, and I see that there are some things that are very difficult to change. They have a lot to do with the stereotypic categories that they put some women in. And I think at the outset, when you were speaking about people and young girls doing things and maybe overachieving, sometimes we have to do that, not because we have to prove anything to ourselves, because I think women know, but we have to do it so that we won't be ignored, that we can't be ignored. And that's actually, most of the times, males have to be able to understand that women can do things. So I think there's a gender gap in the understanding and cultivation. And so I think sometimes when we spend a lot of time trying to give women affirmative action early on so they can be competitive in certain things, it really needs to focus a lot on male education as well, and to have activities where women don't feel intimidated or threatened and they can be themselves. And so that boys don't feel they need to have the last word all the time, or they have to have the whole conversation, that women can be equally respected. And that may take generations. Policymakers, especially in education, I'm sure can find a way to try to make that better, just the same as trying to include arts and science and art. Is trying to meld different worlds that have been separate for so long. And some of that actually, for the stereotype issues, deal with a lot of cultural basis and deeply ingrained religious ideas and beliefs. And those, of course, would have to require many generations of concentrated effort so that no one feels threatened or excluded.
Thank you, Dr. Bondar. It's been a singular honor and a privilege for me to talk to you. You have inspired many, and you will continue to inspire many with your insightful and encouraging discussions that you are continuing to have. As an individual who loves space science and who never misses an opportunity to talk to an astronaut and a staunch feminist, I am in awe of all that you have achieved and deeply grateful for your time, your commitment, and your contribution. Once again, thank you for sharing with us so candidly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your enthusiasm and engagement. Without people like you, we would not be able to make these small steps and then the larger steps that we do need to make.
Thank you, madam. It's been a great honor and a privilege.